Let me introduce you straight away to my sidekick. He is not here today, unfortunately. He's causing mayhem in Sunderland somewhere, but that's Kino. And why I'm using Kino right from the start might become obvious as we go through and I explain part of my journey in business. And for those of you that don't like dogs, how many have we got sitting here thinking, I don't like dogs? No? Oh, fantastic. I was going to say you're already enlightened, because what we're going to be talking about today is about being a leader and thinking about how you have to behave as a leader. What makes a leader? We need courage, we need belief, we need passion, but we also need some skill. How many of you have got a Facebook account? Come on, own up to it. All right. How many of you got friends on Facebook? Yeah? Okay. How many of you got a Twitter account? And how many of you follow other people on Twitter and have Twitter followers? So what else do we have? LinkedIn? Come on, you're all on LinkedIn. You must all be using social media if you're running a business. Yeah? Google+? Pinterest? Do you ever get any business work done? You're so busy on your social media. Why are you on all those social media outlets?
Communication.
Communication. With whom?
People.
People. Who are these people? You can only be a leader if somebody follows you. You can only be a leader if you've got a follower. You can have all the skills in the world. You can have all the luck in the world. You can have all the passion and belief in your product, your service, what you're trying to deliver. What makes you a leader is having at least one follower. Why should I choose to follow you? To an extent, it might be curiosity, which could border on stalking through Twitter and LinkedIn and so on. But why would anyone choose to follow you? In terms of your belief, your passion, where you're trying to take people and the drive you've got within your business or your organization. Now that's a serious question, because authenticity and authentic leadership is rooted not in the process of leadership, but in the individual and the person who is at the core of that process. So really the question should be not why would anyone choose to follow you, but would you choose to follow yourself? Think about some of the decisions that you've made. Think about some of the actions you've taken. Think about some of the ways you might have behaved. Would you choose to follow yourself? Now, why did we all go into business in the first place? Come on, why did you go into business? You hated your job. That's a perfect reason. Same as me. Yeah. Why else did you go into business?
Generate income.
To generate income. Yes, it helps. We're not running a hobby. We're running a business.
To solve a problem that I thought no one else was solving well enough.
Oh, to make a difference. To solve a problem that you thought no one else was solving well enough. Any other real driving, motivating factors for why you went into business in the first place? Did you go into business, or did you create a job for yourself? Now that's quite an important question, because in 1994 I was an arrogant, bottle blonde, working in County Hall in Durham, who had not even hit a glass ceiling. It was solid concrete. I had nowhere else to go. I was bored, didn't like my job, but I was bored. There were problems that I could see solutions to that nobody else was seeing, but I was bored. I wanted to make a difference. I actually was earning quite a lot of money, and I had a good lifestyle, but I was still bored, so I decided I wanted to do something differently. So I made the very, some would say courageous, some would say stupid decision, and I left a full-time job at the age of very early 30s. Did I take a risk? You bet I took a risk. Did my business partner at the time take a risk? You bet. He was married with 5 children, the last of who were twins, and there were only 18 months when he left a very secure full-time job to go into business with me. Did we know what we were doing? Hadn't a clue. Did we know what to expect? Oh no. We'd had the crystal ball, would we have done it? Yeah, because we had fun. We would have done it differently, but we had fun. But within the first 6 months, we went from a very naive situation of we wanted to make a difference, we had some problems to solve, we knew we could generate some income, to a business with 120 staff and 1.5 million turnover in 6 months. So I happened to be in the right place at the right time to create a business. I knew nothing, and I will freely admit, I knew absolutely nothing about running a business, and I knew nothing about getting the buy-in, about leading people and taking people with me. And I learned the hard way. We had our peaks and our troughs, and we had great fun, and we had real moments of despair. And since then, I've been involved in at least 13, 14 other businesses, some very hands-on, some quite remote, just involved in setup stage. But I see the same patterns, trends, and themes coming through every time. And the same patterns, trends, and themes are, you know what? You're dealing with people. Whether those people are internal in your business, whether you're colleagues, whether they're your family, if you're in a family-oriented business, whether they are other stakeholders, or whether they're your supply chain, or whether they're your customers or potential clients, or actually even whether they're your competition. So you're going to be dealing with people. So when we talk today about leadership and about authenticity and authentic leadership, I'm talking about you as an individual. Because if you do not choose to follow yourself, and if you do not believe in the behavior that you are showing and the actions that you are taking, and if you don't actually believe up here in what you're trying to do, why the hell should anybody else? Now, I want to make a very clear distinction right away between leadership and being a leader, because when I asked that question at the conference in New Orleans, the answer I got back 25 minutes later was all about leadership styles, leadership models, leadership traits. It was about the process. And that's what leadership is. Leadership is a process. But a process will not work without something at the core of it. And what needs to be at the core of that process is the person, the leader. So what makes a leader? At least one follower. If you look at any of the current practitioner literature in things like CIPD, Chartered Institute of Personnel Development, ILM, the Institute of Leadership Management, Chartered Management Institute, CMI, they're probably the three main organizations, practitioner organizations. And if you're running your own business, regardless of what sector you're in, I would say keep your eye on the research that those three organizations are doing. Get yourself onto their websites because they've got masses of free resource that can support you. There was a conference in 2004 and all these leadership gurus got together and they said, what are the key factors or facets that bring together authenticity, being genuine, being honest, having some integrity, all the things we would want in a leader, and the process of leadership. If we bring those together, what does it look like? And they produced a concept that actually means the vast majority of people aren't being authentic leaders. Now, when I look at this slide, I think of the Phantom of the Opera. But I want you to just stop now and think. Don't think about your current situation. Think about your previous situation. You didn't like your job. Think about your previous situation. Think about people that you worked with in that previous situation. How many of those people were being genuine, open, honest, had firm belief in what they were doing? And how many of them at certain times perhaps wore a mask? They wore a mask. They maybe didn't believe entirely in what they were being asked to do. They maybe even told you that. I'm really sorry, but I've got to, or so-and-so says, or not really my decision, but. Authenticity is about having that core of belief and following those values. My values may be very, very different to yours. But that doesn't mean I'm not following my values. And it means that when I do come across something in the work environment or in any other aspect of my life that causes me to have some kind of clash or conflict with those values, that I then have to be able to modify and adapt my behaviour. But I have to be able to do it and still remain true to myself. And that's why I walked out of County Hall on the 5th of October in 1994. And I felt when I walked out the house in the morning, I was putting on a different mask. That's also why I left that business that I founded in 1994. I didn't leave it in 94, I founded it in 94. I left it in 2005. But that's also why I left that business, having taken that business on many roller coaster rides. But because at that point, it was no longer congruent and it was no longer right for me. So let's take you back to authenticity and authentic leadership. All the research says there are 9 key things that you have to consider. Why do you think I showed you the photograph of the dog right at the start? He hasn't read any of the books. He doesn't know any of the theories. He hasn't attended any leadership development courses. But he probably knows more about leadership than us collectively put together. Because he will choose at times to follow, and he will choose at other times not to follow. And there will be reasons why. Does instinct play a part? We could come to that. But you know what? I get instant, immediate feedback from that dog. Absolutely instant, immediate feedback. He works at the level of behaviour and emotion. He doesn't go into the corridor, have a little chat with somebody beside the photocopier, put his mask on, and then come back. He is authentic and genuine, and what I see with him is what I get. Don't always like it, but what I see is what I get. So therefore, when I am working, for instance, with that animal, if I am behaving as a leader, and engaging and encouraging him as a follower, we're forming some kind of bond or contract. How many times do you see on the news stories about dogs that are either out of control, or even children for that matter? No, stick with dogs, Lesley, stick with dogs. Dogs that are out of control, or dogs that do certain things, and everybody says, oh yeah, but it's the owner's fault. Well, I agree with them entirely. I agree with them entirely, because the animal is following. Now, what that slide tells me is that authentic leadership is not a fad. It's not the new panacea for all our problems, but that actually it sits underneath the whole process of leadership, and it's talking about the person, it's talking about the individual. So authentic leadership is not a model in its own right. It's not a new leadership style that's going to come in and go out of fashion. You can be an authentic leader in the situational leadership model, or not. You can be an authentic leader in the charismatic leadership model, or not. So this is about the person, and I want to put the person, you as the person in your business, right at the heart of this from now on. Because what I want to show you here is, remember I said there were 9 key elements of authentic leadership. If we start at the left-hand side, this is what you need to have if you're going to be an authentic leader. You need to have positive mindset. Psychological capital, moral perspective. These are the academic theoretical terms. What you need is you need a positive mindset. How many of you went into business with a negative mindset? Come on, it just doesn't happen, does it? We might have had some, what we might class as negative reasons or drivers to move away from to go into business, but you went into business to succeed. You didn't go into business to fail. You went into business to innovate, to change, to make a difference. You didn't go into business just to create a job for yourself. So you have that. You had that positive mindset. It will dip. You'll have your good days, your bad days, and you'll have your bloody awful days. But trust me, if that core is strong enough, you will succeed in business. Let's jump to the other side, to the far right, because the organisational context and sustainable performance is very, very important. Why do you think we're getting so much in the press and the practitioner literature in the organisations I talked about earlier, talking about authentic leadership as if it's the new buzzword? Because it drives performance, but it drives sustainable performance. Because if somebody is authentic, if somebody is genuine, one of the key outcomes that they're going to get from the people that they work with is, I'm much more likely to trust them. So one of your key outcomes of authentic leadership is trust. And that is why authentic leadership has not been shown in things such as the banking and the financial sector. Now, the one I'm really interested in is the second one in from the left about the leader, but it links with the follower because, as I've said, if you're going to be an effective leader or a leader of any kind, you've got to have a follower, even if that follower is yourself. So we're going to pull out that second column with those three areas there, because the work I've been doing recently is I've been doing some research. I've been doing some research through Sunderland University, and it is based all around this area of authentic leadership. And it's about saying, what makes a leader authentic or not? Can you develop leadership? Can you develop a leader? Well, of course you can develop leadership. It's a process. You can teach it. Doesn't mean the person's particularly good at it, but you can teach it. Can you develop a leader? My model takes those three key areas and very simply says, the first thing you've got to do to be a leader of any kind, but particularly an authentic leader, is you've got to have some self-awareness. You've got to challenge yourself. You've got to be prepared to hold that mirror up, turn it round, look in that mirror, have that reality check, and challenge yourself. Are you following your values? Are you true to your beliefs? So, self-awareness. Are you following your values? Are you following your own beliefs? Do you actually genuinely believe in what you're trying to do? Because if you don't, whoever it is, your competitors, your stakeholders, your customers, they'll see through it. So that's self-awareness. I know what I can do and I know what I can do well. I also know what I'm not good at. And I know in my own business that I hate the finance. I hate the VAT returns. I hate all of that side, but I'm self-aware enough to know what I can do and what I shouldn't be doing. But challenging myself is one thing. It's then saying, okay, so what? What do I do with that information? So self-awareness as a leader is important, but you then have to know what you can do in terms of the choice of how you want to behave. Now, I showed you a photograph of a dog at the start. I do not train dogs, as you would know if you'd met mine. But I do not train dogs. But I do use dogs in my work. And I take leaders who tell me, oh, yes, I've been a leader for years. I know all the theories. I've read all the books, etc. And I take them into a field and I give them 4 or 5 dogs. And at that point, they usually look at me and go, what? And of course, it's the dog's fault that they're not behaving. It's the dog's fault that one of them's chasing a rabbit, the other's trying to dig a hole, and the third one's probably gone to sleep. It's the dog's fault, not the leader's fault. I've got a German Shepherd. His best mate is a Chihuahua. The third one in the group, or the pack, is a Spaniel. Trust me, that Spaniel doesn't even know it's a dog. It thinks it's a yo-yo. So I cannot behave in the same way with all 3 dogs. Yet how many people go into a work environment or a business environment and treat 3 customers the same? Or treat 3 members of their team the same? You've got to choose. You've got to be adaptable. You've got to be flexible. If you are in business for yourself, you cannot afford to stand still. You cannot afford to be static. If you do, next week you're a week out of date. Simple as that. You made this choice. You put yourself in that situation, you've now got to embrace the fact that you are on this journey of change. Now, that doesn't mean that you have got to do everything, but it does mean that you've got to be an effective leader. Some of the most effective leaders I have seen are the people who are working at the grassroots level. When you go into business for yourself and you work in a business, you start at grassroots level. You're everything. You're everything to all people. You're the IT department, the finance department, the HR department, the marketing department, customer service, the compliance department. You're everything. As you grow, you bring in other people to support you. Don't forget where you started. Because leadership and authenticity in leadership is about you being able to still have that drive and that passion. Remember those 3 words. Challenge. You're at the heart of everything that's happening in your business. You're part of the problem as well as the solution. And the key to being an effective leader and running a successful business is having that degree of flexibility, adaptability, and being able to behave differently in different situations. Authentic leadership is about knowing what you believe in and then behaving in a way that is congruent with that, but also matches the needs of the people that you're going to be engaging with. The 3 key outcomes of authentic leadership. And just ask yourself, are these the outcomes you want in your business? Engagement. Engagement with employees, engagement with stakeholders, engagement with customers, engagement with potential customers. Trust. Do you want your customers to trust you? Do you want your employees to trust you? Do you want to have that trust in your employees? And well-being. I started a business. It nearly killed me. Because that final element of well-being, I worked 24/7. It killed my business partner at the age of 50. So authentic leadership, by becoming an authentic leader yourself, you will start to develop a degree of flexibility in your behaviour, which means that you will start to surround yourself with people who will help you take your business where you want it to go.